there's some.
We went to their headquarters. My audience are Christians who deal with religious sects that thrive in the urban corridor, and these groups are often overlooked in standard mainstream apologetics. So that's my audience that I want to speak to. So who are the nation of gods and earths? Let's start with a little story about this man right here. This man is affectionately known by Clarence 13X. However, even that designation is considered offensive to his most loyal adherents because they call him Father Allah. So if you speak to a member of the nation of gods and earths, also more commonly known as 5%ers, they view it as disrespectful to call him Clarence 13X. His real name is Clarence Smith. Sure, I'll take a question. I'm okay.
I'm just wondering.
Oh, yes, he was assassinated in the late 60s, most likely by the Nation of Islam.
Wow.
Although there's some folks who, yes, exactly. There's a very tumultuous time for the Nation of Islam and its offshoots, of which the group we're going to speak about today is. So he was a decorated war hero, and when he got back from his service in the army, his wife had joined the Nation of Islam, specifically Muhammad Mosque Temple number 7. Muhammad Mosque Temple number 7 is actually famous because it's where Malcolm X, who was one of the most well-known Nation of Islam members ever, ministered during his time before he was removed, depending on what account you look at. But Clarence joined his wife, Dora Smith, there and took on the teachings. And then he began doing martial arts instruction. Martial arts instruction has always been important to Nation of Islam members. And so Clarence apparently was a good teacher, but he also taught theology. And one day, one of the higher ups stopped in on his class and heard what he was saying and basically said, not so much, not anymore. Clarence didn't want to stop teaching his version or understanding of the Nation of Islam's theology. He also did not want to stop gambling. These two things together, as well as some other things, again, this is very perspectival depending on which group you ask, but he was no longer a member of the Nation of Islam. But that would not stop him. So what he did is founded his own sect. And Clarence 13X was originally from Virginia, saw and experienced a lot of racism himself, moved to New York, and who would have thought that this guy, in a very short time actually, because he didn't have that long with this group before he himself was killed, and yet he went on to influence Erykah Badu, Lakeem Shabazz. There's kind of the guy considered the founder of hip-hop, DJ Kool Herc. You've got a Jay Electronica. If you look there, the man in the yellow, that's Kool Herc, considered the first true hip-hop DJ or pioneer. His shirt is their universal flag. And that's not all. Jay-Z, look at what he's wearing. He's wearing the universal flag. There's an old Source magazine speaking about members who are involved or influenced by 5% or Nation of Gods and Earth Theology, Big Daddy Kane, Paris. You got RZA from the Wu-Tang, and it goes on and on. Lord Jamar, who's still pretty well known because of his interviews on Vlad TV, which is a massive YouTube channel. So its peak as far as influencing the larger culture was in the 90s, to be sure, but it hasn't disappeared. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the peak was in the 90s, but it's not done. And also it left indelible marks, such as this is Jay-Z, very well known, rocking the pendant at a basketball game. And let's now explain a little bit about what the pendant means. What I mean is not specifically the pendant, but the Nation of Gods and Earth's theology. Again, they're not normally called by most people 5%ers. And here's why. They believe that 85% of the population of the world is deaf, dumb, and blind. They believe that there's another percentage, 10%, who know the truth but willingly lead others astray. They usually put Christians, especially Christian leaders, in that category. Then there's the 5% who are woke to the truth and aware. And those folks are members of this group. And they understand basically secret sciences. And I'm going to get a little bit into that as well. So to backtrack, because this is a lot, especially if you've never heard of this group. But, here we are in Brooklyn. Just go right over to Harlem, and the original school is sitting right there. Five Percenters are a splinter group that broke away from the Nation of Islam in 1964 under the leadership of Clarence Pudding 13X. Different versions of how he got that nickname. His mom used to say Put, and then it became Put. His middle name turned into Pudding. Others say because he spoke so smoothly. The name is derived from the belief that they are the chosen 5% of humanity who live a righteous Islamic life, although there's nothing really Islamic about it, and thereby have manifested the true divine nature of the black man who is God or Allah. This is an interesting picture of the school that we actually visited Wednesday night, where you have Nation of Islam members outside of the 5% headquarters. The point by me showing this picture, which is a more modern, a newer picture, is to show that in a lot of ways the Nation of Islam and the 5%ers have mended the fences. Even though there is some real problems back in the 60s and to a certain extent the 70s, by and large, that relationship is not as hostile as it once was. And so they'll even talk about them in some favorable ways. This is the Nation of Islam speaking about the 5%ers. The group, rather than the NOI, was primarily responsible for disseminating, popularizing, and reinterpreting the lessons or teachings of Elijah Muhammad, that's the founder of the Nation of Islam, among the adolescent generation of the 60s in the New York metropolitan area. In the 25 years since, the influence of the 5% Nation, or the nations of gods and earth, as they are now known, has grown enormously. Many of the lyrics in contemporary rap music make direct reference or strong allusion to 5% ideology. There's Clarence again, and anyone know who the guy in the middle is? That's Carmelo Anthony. He's at the school right there in Harlem, and he's also got the universal flag on as well. I say all that to say, just because you haven't heard of a group doesn't mean it's not influential. They began the headquarters called the Urban League Street Academy. And the way that happened actually is because Clarence developed a very friendly relationship with the mayor at the time. And so they actually had a relationship where they worked together, and part of the relationship was Clarence 13X requested more bus lines because he mainly taught youth, and he requested a place for his school, and they actually gave him one, and it's still there to this day. Now called Allah's School in Mecca. Mecca is Harlem, and Brooklyn is Medina. So they give them names, the boroughs, different names like that. And here we go. This is sort of the beginning. You see Clarence in the picture there. The beginning, where he was mainly basically being a father to fatherless youth. And that's why, even though for a Christian it's very difficult to call a man Father Allah, you have a certain level of understanding of why adherents might have called him Father Allah. But part of the problem is not just the father, it's the Allah, because they believe that each black man is God manifested, but they don't have a singular God. So even their understanding of what God means is a little confusing. They encourage business, entrepreneurship, like the Nation of Islam. There's an example of that. I'm not going to be able to talk about everything I want to. This is a picture from earlier this year.
Your 2-minute warning, but this is I want to say just as a pause, I'm not taking your time away.
It's all right.
It's really fascinating.
I want to see more.
I find myself really pulled in.
Yeah, me too.
But we'll have the 2-minute warning, and then maybe you can just kind of give a land the plane. So
sure,
but you're doing a great job.
This picture is actually from spring of this year. The city renamed Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. They didn't rename it; they co-named it to 5%ers, Allah and Justice Square. So the street is actually named now after their group. Adam Clayton Powell was a Christian preacher. So, I don't like him having to share a street with a man who may have meant well, I don't know, was a heretic. But they have his medals on display there because, as I mentioned earlier, he was a war hero. What are their basic beliefs? I'm going to have to just name them. So this is really informative. Step 1 of apologetic is understanding. We won't be able to do a deep critique here today. Black people are the original people of the planet Earth. Black people are the fathers and mothers of civilization. The science of supreme mathematics is the key to understanding man's relationship to the universe. And this comes right off their website, 5% Nation, What We Teach. And that one right there, they believe there's laws built into the universe, but they don't really have a designer. And so I like to press them on that point when I speak to them. That third point especially is problematic for them. Islam, and by that they mean their understanding of what they practice, because it's not Quranic or anything like that. That's just what they call it. Islam is a natural way of life, not a religion. Education should be fashioned to enable us to be self-sufficient as a people. I mean, who could disagree with that, really? Each one of us should teach one according to their knowledge. They encourage discipleship and mentorship. That the black man is God and his proper name is Allah. Now, this is what's called a backronym. A backronym is where you take something and then make it into an acronym by retconning, which is sort of a nerd term in comic books. So Allah is arm, leg, arm, head. Arm, leg, I forgot the second L. But it's a man. See what I'm saying? And at one time I'll say, well, that's only in English, you know what I'm saying? But they've heard those objections before and have their own interesting ways to deal with them. Our children are linked to the future and they must be nurtured, respected, loved, protected, and educated. So a common slogan of the 5%ers is teach the babies. That the unified black family is the vital building block of Islam. Now, here's the basis of their beliefs. And the reason why I have a picture of Elijah Muhammad and Fard, who's the founder of the Nation of Islam, up there, is because these 120 degrees of life, these supreme wisdom lessons, are supposed to be a conversation between these two guys. And it's really weird if you read it. You can get it online or you can get it in a book format, which I have, but it's basically all this. Now, the Nation of Islam actually teaches this as well, but they view it as higher knowledge for more experienced practitioners. One problem they have with the 5%ers is that they disseminate this to anyone in the street. So they view that as a problem. But those are the names of the lessons. And then they have things like this. This is the supreme mathematics. So each number is associated with a value. And then what they'll do is say, for example, what's today's date?
Not 10.
Today is August 10th. So we know 8 represents build and destroy, and then they'll give a lesson on what that means. And 10 is knowledge plus cipher, and then they'll give a lesson on it. That's an example of the way they would break things down. And if you understand the number codes, you understand what they're saying. But it's not meant for you as an outsider to understand. It's something that you acquire through continual exposure to this. And there's also a supreme alphabet. Some of this is similar perhaps to Sufi Islam, if you look at some of the esoteric nature and putting spiritual meanings into words and whatnot. But we don't have time to cover it, but just know that's their supreme alphabet. And so really, there's sort of a Gnostic element in this religion, in which if you don't understand these things when they speak, it makes no sense. But that's what they do. And with that, I'll end with a common 5% salutation when they're leaving, which is peace. But peace stands for practice everything in complete eternity. Or please educate Allah's children with equality. Or the power eyes of Allah sees everything. Or positive energy activates constant elevation. Peace.
That was great.
So I want to ask, do they believe that God created everything, or they don't have that belief?
There's no distinct individual entity God.
It's the black man.
Yes, and he's sort of a representation of the universe.
So it's more like pantheism?
The black man was self-created out of triple blackness or triple darkness a long time ago.
So it's more like pantheism?
Yeah, and then you have like individuals who represent or manifest that. So when they say God, they don't mean the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What they mean by that is you have sovereignty or authority within your sphere of responsibility. That's what they mean by that.
Okay. Weird.
And that's last one. I want to say this, that really was that I love that you've identified a niche, because see what happens is sometimes people get excited about something like this, but they really get more excited about doing something about they're not really engaging it, and you're